When we garden for wildlife, it's really important to grow the right plants. Because plants form the foundation of every land-based ecosystem on Earth. They harness the sun's energy, turn it into nectar for pollinating insects like bees, and tasty leaves and stems for herbivores. And it's this energy that's carried right to the top of the food chain to feed the apex predators. But while some plants feed wildlife, others don't. So I want to give you some recommendations of reliable garden plants that look beautiful and support nature. And I thought it would be good to start by showing you some of the wildlife-friendly plants in this community garden that we built last year. Because this project was funded by a biodiversity grant, so I had wildlife in mind when I was designing it. Let's start with Salvia nemorosa caradonna. It's one of my favourite plants. It's beautiful, it's reliable, it flowers for ages, and bumblebees in particular seem to love it. Caradonna is probably the most popular cultivar, and it really is an excellent plant, but if purple isn't your colour, you're in luck because it comes in pink too. Or if you prefer a plant that looks more at home next to a wildflower meadow, you might like to try Salvia pratensis Twilight Serenade, the meadow sage. You know, seeing it in our garden this evening, I can just imagine it in the wild, with its flowers sitting above the long grass, feeding all of these really important insects. And what you'll find is the Salvia as a genus is really popular with pollinating insects, like this red-flowered Salvia royal bumble. But it's a plant growing right next to it that I want to bring your attention to. It's quite common, but I don't think it's any less special because of that. Now, you can see that the bees love it, that much is clear, but the other day I noticed that the butterflies and night-flying moths do as well. This is a painted lady butterfly, and it's migratory. That means that earlier in the year, its parents left Africa, they mated partway, maybe in Spain, and died. And a few weeks later, this one arrived in our garden. Painted ladies weigh less than a gram, but they migrate around 9,000 miles each year. It's an incredible undertaking. And by choosing the right plants, we can support this incredible species and make sure it has what it needs when it gets here. Let's head back to the community garden for a moment. This is Knautia macedonica. Macedonica because it grows wild in, you guessed it, Macedonia. And actually, before I go any further, I should say that if botanical plant names like this sound like gobbledygook to you, don't worry, it's not just you. They do look weird to begin with, but they're actually quite easy to understand. And if you want to become a better gardener, you really need to know how they work. So you can find the right plants for your garden and for the wildlife that lives there. So you can understand how your different garden plants are related to each other. And so you can make educated guesses about what conditions they might like to grow in. And because of how important it is for all gardeners to be able to use botanical plant names, I made a completely free course that you can take at restorativegardeners.com. If you start the free course now, within an hour you'll have all of the skills, understanding and confidence that you need to use botanical plant names like I do. And as a planting designer and gardening mentor, trust me when I say that this will make you a better gardener. It's not hard, you don't need to learn a new language. I learnt this when I was 17 years old and I was never really very good in school. But it completely transformed my life and opened up the door to the world of plants and animals. So if you're a home gardener, a professional horticulturist, or if you want to understand and see the natural world more clearly, head over to restorativegardeners.com and take this completely free course. You won't regret it. Now, back to Knautia macedonica. Like I said, it's not from around here, and that raises an important question. Do plants really need to be native to support our native wildlife? The answer is no, they don't. And many non-native plants can actually extend the flowering season feeding wildlife before and after our native wildflowers, as well as filling in gaps when our natives might not be doing very much. That said, native wildflowers are very important, and Knautia arvensis, which is a very close relative of Knautia macedonica, is perfect for those wilder areas of your garden, like here in our little wildflower meadow, where they're feeding pollinating insects like bees, sap-sucking insects like shield bugs, which, by the way, whenever I went to film them, they would notice me and slowly but purposefully walk around the other side of the flower so I couldn't see them anymore. And birds like these goldfinches. Sticking with native plants, there's another cool one growing back in the community garden. It's the ox-eye daisy. I don't normally grow them in borders because they can be a bit floppy on fertile soil, like this one in our garden. But these self-seeded themselves in the community garden, where the soil happens to be really free-draining, and so far, they're staying upright. That said, I'd recommend growing ox-eye daisies in meadows rather than a border. Believe it or not, these are the same plant, but the conditions in this meadow keeps them at least half the height of the ones in the border. While I'm here, I might as well show you something very special. Can you see it yet? This is Ophrys epiphyra, the bee orchid, and unlike the plants I've shown you so far, which produce nectar to feed pollinating insects, the bee orchid doesn't. At some point in its evolutionary history, it decided that producing nectar would take far more energy than not. So instead, it evolved to look and smell very similar to a female long-horned bee. The male bees see the orchid, get confused, try and mate with it, get even more confused, and then fly off and repeat the process, pollinating lots of bee orchids as they go. So, although bee orchids no doubt have lots of important roles for wildlife, I'm not sure whether the long-horned bees would agree. Anyway, I'm not suggesting you should go and buy a bee orchid. That's not really how it works with orchids. They're kind of like wands in Harry Potter. They choose you. But if you want to learn how to turn your lawn into a biodiverse wildflower meadow that attracts wildlife-friendly plants like the field scabious, like the ox-eye daisies, and yes, like the bee orchid, I've got videos on how to do this, so check them out. Okay, Phlomoides tuberosa amazon. This is a really cool plant that I find actually takes a little while to establish. And these were only planted last year, so I'm excited to see them continue to settle in. But yeah, I love them, bees love them, and I really hope you do too. Oh, and by the way, the name means like a phlomis, but with tubers. If you're wondering what a phlomis is, this is Phlomis russelliana, another pollinator-friendly plant. And if you're wondering what a tuber is, it's kind of like a potato, but probably not edible in this case. Although Phlomoides is actually in the mint family, so who knows. If you want to learn about plant families, join the free course at restorativegardeners.com. Now, so far, I've only shown you plants that are flowering now, in June. And this is a seasonal video, so I think that's okay, but the truth is that it's important to have a diverse range of plants because they all do different things at different times of the year. So I'm going to very quickly mention a few of my favourites. Now, many of the earliest flowering plants are trees and shrubs because they can put on lots of growth in the previous summer, including the flower buds. And when spring comes, all they really need to do is open them up. Crabapples and cherries are prime examples. Here's a crabapple flowering in our garden back in early April, and the number and variety of bees attracted to it really is phenomenal. So definitely get some small flowering trees in your garden. Around the same time, we had Lamium ovala flowering, which the bumblebees loved. It's not a native plant, but the other dead nettles that are native don't do especially well in flower borders, so this works as an excellent alternative. And It's growing through this carpet of sweet woodruff, Gallium odoratum, another wildlife-friendly plant. I should also point out that flowers aren't the only things that support wildlife. Lots of wildlife species feed on leaves or other plant parts but aren't interested in flowers at all. So although plants like grasses are often forgotten about in wildlife gardens, they're really important, and because of that, they make up a lot of the number of plants in our borders. We don't cut them down until early spring, because all winter long you'll find bugs and beetles clinging onto them. Reliable plants I love for feeding wildlife later in the season include Sanguisoba, which are amazing for mimicking that biodiverse grassland that would have covered so much of the world before human intervention. Verbena bonariensis, which is very popular with butterflies, moths, bees, flies, and so on. And Veronicastrum, which really are a fantastic plant, and I find does well with a little bit of shade. But I'll make more videos on these plants later in the year. For now, I really hope that this has given you an idea of plants to look out for next time you visit a garden centre or plant nursery. Plants are the foundation of every land-based ecosystem on our planet. If you get this right, your garden will support more wildlife, and it could make a huge difference to biodiversity in your area. So choose great plants, grow as much variety as you can, and watch the wildlife turn up at your door. Okay, if you found this video useful, if you've enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. Please leave a comment because I love reading them and I love chatting in the comment section about plants. And I do reply to every comment I see. So please do that. Until next time, enjoy your garden, give wildlife the opportunity to enjoy it too, and I'll see you soon.